Support for podcasts comes from Milwaukee School of Engineering Center for Professional Education, offering courses in AI machine learning, project management, and more. Program information at msoe.edu/CPE.
Hey everyone, this is Jimmy, host of Status Pending. Like everyone else, we've been following what's going on in Minneapolis and the Twin Cities and across the nation when it comes to immigration enforcement. So stick with us. There's more to come on that soon. But today we've got something else for you, something that we all might need, a little hope. And it's coming from a small Presbyterian church on Milwaukee's northwest side. You're going to meet Pastor D. Anderson, who's the longtime pastor at West Granville Presbyterian Church. And Pastor D retired last year, but for years, he's overseen resettlement of international teachers coming to teach at Milwaukee Public Schools. Now, you might remember our episode on work visas with Chigozie Okonkwo and Chioma Emba from Nigeria. They're part of Dee's congregation, and that's how reporters Audrey Nowakowski and Catherine Coco met them. So here's Pastor D talking about the ways that the church stepped up and met the moment.
At the very front entrance of the original part of the church was founded in 1860 and the building was constructed in 1861. It says in German, the First Presbyterian Church. And originally it was the First Presbyterian Church of Granville. But it's in German, and so our immigrant identity is literally etched into the headstone of the church and part of the DNA and the very fabric of this congregation's founding and of its identity.
And you've updated it. You have been a place for German immigrants. What are the immigrant communities that use this church and that are parts of this church like now?
Now we are welcoming African immigrants, and particularly people who are being recruited from Milwaukee Public Schools to be teachers, because there's a shortage of teachers for Milwaukee Public Schools. And so they have a program that is recruiting from English-speaking countries. And so currently we have 5 teachers in our congregation, and they've come from Nigeria and Ghana and settled here with their families and are the latest new arrivals.
And they kind of sought you out, right?
They did, because in their home countries, they were part of the Presbyterian community. And so when they came here to Milwaukee and were looking to find a place to begin creating new connections, they sought out a Presbyterian identity and found us on the northwest side of Milwaukee.
And a lot of them live near here? Like, is that just because you helped settle them, or how does that work?
Well, when they come here as new arrivals to Milwaukee Public Schools, they're put into a hotel room or an extended stay for about a month, and then they have to find an apartment and begin to settle into the community. And the northwest side of Milwaukee has always been a place of affordable housing and settling. And one of the interesting things is when they move out of that hotel and move into their new apartments, they have nothing. And we have connected with them, and then we've been able to put out a call to the congregation that said, hey, we have somebody who's settling into their new apartment. And I am instantly flooded with offers of kitchen tables or sofas or chairs. We've helped them get beds. And then oftentimes we have a kind of rally moment where everybody brings their pickup trucks and we descend on their house and help them move in and settle. And one of the members of our church also puts together something that I'd never thought of, but it's really creative. They put together a toolbox for them, because who moves into their apartment and brings a toolbox from Ghana? And the fun of that is we get to go into their apartment and give to them a house blessing. And often we'll bring gifts like cleaning supplies and other things, some food to help them stock their kitchen or their pantry. And you get a sense that you're helping them make a new home, and you become friends and part of their family for life because you've shared this experience of helping them settle.
That sounds like to me such a soft landing, in kind of contrast to so many of the stories that we hear about people coming to this country utterly alone and unsupported. And like, it's a labyrinth, right? The process to get here is kind of purposefully confusing. And I don't mean that as a judgment. I mean that as pretty much a fact. And so I wonder, like, once people are on their feet and they feel that kind of like soft landing and welcome, what are their lives like here?
It's a completely new beginning and a completely new experience. And one of the things that we have found is that helping people settle in that very first step opens all of the doorways to helping them as they settle into everything else. When they need a doctor, when they need car insurance, when they need to navigate our own healthcare system, when they need to figure out how to get a driver's license. And suddenly we become the number that they call, and we get a chance to go over, and we are also fed every time that we go over and do something or have a project. And it's like, try my specialty or try this food. And so much of culture is embraced in the food that we share. And so we've been able to share the gift of food and hospitality and welcome. Everybody who has participated in helping a family settle in and then navigate everything that they need to know in those first couple of crucial months has felt such a rich sense of reward and a sense of connection. And I was just talking to somebody just 2 days ago who said, one of our African families, who said it feels like family. We become, in the best sense, family that is shared together.
I do not know the political makeup of your congregation, but have you had conversations with people who welcome immigrant families that they undergo a different opinion after doing this?
I think what makes the difference, Katie, is that it's personal. And, you can have a label on somebody, or you can see a stereotype of somebody, or see a news report about a particular group. But when it is a human being that's in your congregation, sitting in the pew next to you, that you've helped scrub their kitchen floor and stock their pantry, suddenly then they're a real life person and you know them by name. The other gift is the gift of children. And our congregation is filled with their children. And during our worship service, we have a moment which we call Time with Children. And you'll just hear the thundering footprints of the kids who run forward. Mm-hmm. And, it's such joy. I talked to one of our members who said that one of the reasons they love coming to church is to see the children, because they're a senior citizen and there's no other part of their life that they see children like that. Yeah. And so in terms of stereotypes, when you know a family and you know their kids and you're invested with them, I think it does change all of us. Regardless of what your political beliefs may have been, you now have an investment with the success of this family. Mm. And I've been invited to their high school graduations as their kids get older, and their college moments, and the growth of generational families as those continue. We always feel like we are the ones who are learning and receiving and being the beneficiaries of. And so it isn't just one way, it is so mutual.
You mentioned it's like not a formal program, right? Is kind of organically built from people coming to the church, seeking out their church community that they had back home. But reading up on some of the church's history in helping previously enslaved people and helping them settle, has it just always been a tenet and a mission, or has it just grown organically just because of your values over the years?
I think you raise a really good question. And part of our faith tradition has a teaching to love your neighbor as yourself. And that's just part of our core values, to love God and then to turn around and love your neighbor as yourself, to show compassion and kindness. And these become tangible ways that we are actually helping a new neighbor. There's another teaching from our faith tradition where the question is asked, when did you see me hungry? When did you see me thirsty? And when did you see me as a stranger and welcome me? And then Jesus says, whatever you do to the least of these, you do to me. So I think it is built into our faith tradition. to reach out and care for the stranger or for giving them welcome. But then also, it has seamlessly been a part of our community here at West Granville. In the 60s, we welcomed refugees from various parts of Eastern Europe and from Dutch Indonesia. And we're still in touch with those families to this day. In the early 2000s, we welcomed an African woman who was seeking asylum. And for 10 years, we helped settle her to an apartment, the exact same thing, helped her navigate the legal process. And she became a kind of grandmother to the whole congregation.
There is so much othering that I think is happening among many religious communities right now. There are a lot of people who want to capitalize on Christianity in the United States, specifically evangelical Christianity, to create an in-group and an out-group. And there are a lot of people in the out-group. I think who's in the out-group kind of changes over the decades and over the years. But right now, I would say that it's fair to say that people like the people who are coming here and looking for help and looking for families and looking to work in the United States are in the out-group. When you're thinking about your faith and the faith of the people in this congregation, how does the immigrant work, the immigration work, and the settling work that you do support that or challenge that?
I can only speak from our congregation's experience about what we experience here in this community. And one of the things that we have as you enter into the church is a giant circle banner that was made for our 150th anniversary. And it is made up of scraps of material that have been all put together into a single quilt that hangs in the entrance of the church. And it is to represent our welcoming of the fullness of diversity for whatever people have come from. And the gift of that welcome is that our community becomes richer. And if you only think of it as opposites or labels or others, you miss the fact that our community becomes stronger and richer and more vital with every person that we welcome here together. And so my understanding of Jesus is he's the one who sought out the people who are most in need of comfort and care and said, come on, sit down at the table with me. Zacchaeus, get out of the tree, have a dinner. I'm coming to your house tonight. And so my idea of Jesus is a pretty broad tent. And I think our experience personally is our congregation has been far more vital by welcoming all people inside the doors and celebrating with them. And then we get to have all the gifts of their experience that we learn from. And whether it's their food or their culture or their life or their identity, it has made our congregation more vital.
I was interviewing a pastor at an AME church in South Carolina a number of years ago, and he said to me, it's easy to accept someone who looks like you, who votes like you, who talks like you, who works like you, whose family looks like yours. And he said it's far more difficult and it's far more gratifying to accept someone who has nothing in common with you. And you have something very important in common with the families that are coming in their Presbyterian faith, but it seems like that's kind of where their similarities end for a bit. And so I think just this isn't a question, but it's fascinating to hear how people challenge themselves and they put themselves out, it sounds like, in many different ways.
And I think there's two other things to that. One of them is you have to have a healthy sense of curiosity because your curiosity leads into wanting to know more about their life or their family. I went to one family, and the first thing on my very first day of visiting them in their home, they got out their wedding album.
Whoa.
And they wanted to show me pictures of their wedding back in their home country. And by the time I left there, I felt like I was a richer person because they talked to me about the special customs that took place at the wedding. And they showed me pictures of their mom and of their dad and of their uncle who had to approve of the wedding. And I walked away from there and said, this is one of the best days of my life, you know? And so that sense of wanting to know more about somebody who may be outwardly different from you, but also knit with you in that sense of shared purpose and community. And then accepting the gifts and the talents that everybody brings along the way as they add their own cultural influence to our worship service or to our meetings or to our purposefulness just makes our community grow. We've had several Sundays in worship where we've invited people to stand up. We did a closing benediction or a closing blessing where we invited a number of different families to give that blessing in their own local language. And so we heard it in French, and we heard it in several local traditional dialects and languages, and a way of just demonstrating to the congregation that we're all speaking the blessing of peace, but all hearing it with different voices, and those different voices make a mighty chorus.
Those were reporters Catherine Kokel and Audrey Nowakowski speaking with retired pastor Dee Anderson, or Pastor D at West Granville Presbyterian Church. Theme music in this episode is by Blue Dot Sessions. You can hear the story on work visas if you haven't yet with Chigozie Nkankwu and Chiomba Emba in our feed. We'll also be dropping more immigration coverage from the team at WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR, in the coming weeks, so stay tuned.
How does AI even work? Where does creativity come from? What's the secret to living longer? TED Radio Hour explores the biggest questions with some of the world's greatest thinkers. They will surprise, challenge, and even change you. Listen to NPR's TED Radio Hour wherever you get your podcasts.